Welcome back to another episode of Diamond Podcast. I'm your host, local realtor, entrepreneur, and community advocate, Alfredo Diamond. Thanks for tuning in. Happy Friday. I've got a special guest here today and an inspiration, man. Being a father of two daughters and seeing what this next guest is doing on a daily basis, and just such a big fan of hers, and hopefully an inspiration to many kids and young ladies. Miss Jill McGinty, CJM Construction. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Al. I appreciate it, and I appreciate your kind words.
Oh, man, he's well deserving. And so this is a long time coming, something I wanted to do, but I know you're very busy. So just want to jump right into it, Jill. You know, you look back at where you are now and your beginnings. Walk me through where you're from, and what kind of took you on this path.
So I started out, my background is healthcare. That's what I went to college for.
Okay.
I also took business classes and had some business management. And right out of college, I started investing and buying real estate. I started with farm ground and then residential rentals. And as we moved to Richmond, we started acquiring several rental properties. And then over the years, people would always ask, who does your plumbing, who works on your roofs, who helps with this or that. And so I kind of initially thought about coming up with the concept of like Jill's list, like Angie's list.
Okay.
And then I thought about it more, and I was like, you know what? I really enjoyed this. And I bought some ground in Liberty, and I built 2 spec houses.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's kind of how it started. And I really enjoyed it. And I loved the final product and the excitement of seeing it complete. And I decided I was going to start a construction company.
Wow. I'm going to come back to that. So let me go way back. So, your early beginnings, like what was your childhood like? What was it like growing up? And then I want to take a deep dive into why you went from healthcare to down the path. Yeah. So kind of talk about your upbringing and things like that. Who was influential in your life?
Yes. So I grew up in Brookville and with my parents. My parents both worked. My mom worked in healthcare, and my dad was a machinist. Oh. And I have one brother.
Okay.
And we are very close. All of my family is involved in the business now. My dad works for me full time, and my mom helps out on a regular basis. And my brother, when he's on vacations or has time off from his regular job, he comes and works with us as well. My kids both work for me during the summer when they're out of school. So it's definitely very family oriented and a family business. But growing up, my dad really instilled in my brother and I about investing and starting, a 401k and when we got out and had an opportunity with our employer to make sure that we maximized those opportunities. And so from a very young age, that was instilled in us. And, I think as parents, we always want our children to have more and do better than we do. And so I'm really grateful for the foundation that my parents, instilled in me and give me that drive to want to do better and have, opportunities that they didn't necessarily have.
Wow, man, I love that. And we share a common goal there. I think those things are important to me. And I do want to take a deep dive into, your family and your father's working for you. So I want to come back to that. But so let's go back to, so you went to school for healthcare. What were you going to be, or did you?
So I'm a respiratory therapist, and I still keep a license in Indiana and Ohio. And I worked at University Hospital in Cincinnati, and I worked at McCullough Hyde in Oxford part-time. And then after I got married and was going to think about having children, I give up my job at University Hospital in Cincinnati, and I went full-time at McCullough Hyde. And I worked full-time for 20 years.
Wow,
really? As a therapist.
I did not know that. So what was the pivotal moment where you're like, I'm going from healthcare to full-time? Because you do everything, and I love that. Is it safe to call you a serial entrepreneur?
Yes.
Yeah, you do everything, and it still got a license in medical. That's awesome. Yeah. So what happened for you to say, okay, man, I'm going to give up this 20-year career doing this, right?
Yes.
And I'm going to take this leap of faith to do this. Did you have a business plan? Like how did it all work?
No business plan. It was very organic. So after the spec houses were done, I bought a very dilapidated farmhouse in Union County. And we started working on that. I had hired a couple guys that I knew that had worked in construction, who actually are full-time firemen.
Okay.
And so we started working on this farmhouse. And during that time was when COVID happened. My dad
Yeah.
also found out around the same time that he needed a kidney transplant. So I really had to make some choices and some changes in my healthcare career at that point, because I couldn't be around those patients and then be around my dad.
Wow.
And so I decided to go PRN at the hospital and kind of take this construction opportunity on full time. And so that's when I kind of decided that, I really wanted to be in it full time and kind of give it everything. And so we did. We worked all through COVID. And during that time, people started calling for us to, fix this or do that. And it just started picking up more and more. And probably about 2 years into it, then I gave up my hospital job altogether. I was still working a few shifts a month and, helping them out and keeping my foot in the door. I really enjoyed healthcare and I was very passionate about that as well. But like many things, healthcare had changed and was evolving, and I was getting more and more removed from the bedside, and that was really what my passion was and where my heart was. And so I just really dove into the construction, and I found it to be really what I love and, where I feel like I've really been able to thrive and kind of grow into what is important to me and what I love doing and what I'm excited about. And so it's been a great opportunity.
I've seen it. You wrote the design. You do design.
Yes.
You have a flooring shop, dumpster rentals.
Yes.
Rentals, whatever.
Yes.
You got it covered all across the board. So one thing I'm passionate about too is, and I'm trying. It's been a small challenge, but and I really haven't broken into it with others. But there's a different way to do business, and I come from a family where there's a lot of and there's nothing wrong with that. I've worked in a lot of manufacturing myself, done a little bit of everything, but people get comfortable doing things that they see. This is like where I'm comfortable at. For you, what did it take for you to say, "Hey, Dad, I got you. Come work with me," or your children? I mean, what? And then now your staff.
Yes.
I mean, that's a lot of pressure.
It's a ton of pressure.
How'd you get there, and then how do you handle the pressure?
So I think twofold, right? I think that like I touched on a little bit earlier, I have done it very organically. I've did it a little bit at a time, even adding in the dumpster business and the flooring store. Those were things that were very driven by our own needs for our own customers and things. And so then it was like, we should offer this to our, to the public and to our clients' friends and so on and so forth. And they've grown, it's grown individually on that front. It is a lot of stress when you have so many people relying on you to feed their families.
Yeah.
And so I think that probably out of all the things that you do as an entrepreneur and as a business owner, those are the things that people don't see in the background. They think, oh, it's so glamorous. You own your own business. You're successful. You have these things, or you drive this kind of car, or whatever the situation is for a business owner or an entrepreneur. But they have no idea the sleepless nights and the risk that you're taking. And how, like I said, how many people are relying on you to do the right thing and to be successful. And, for me, that takes a lot of time and organization and logistics that go on in the background that people don't see or don't understand or don't appreciate.
That's a lot of pressure. I struggle. And we had this conversation on the last episode, but you think about hiring people. I mean, at what point did you get to where you're like, okay, I'm looking at my books, I'm looking how busy we're getting, where you might have started out outsourcing or other contractors. Now you're a general contractor. But at what point did you say, you know what, I can afford to sustain bringing on a person or maybe two people? What was that like?
So I think that it kind of has definitely happened, gradually.
Yeah.
Initially starting out with 2 guys and then 3 guys, and now we have 16 people that work
16
for
people?
me. Yes.
That's crazy. I didn't know.
Yes. But and then making sure that you can keep all of those people. One
Yeah.
of the things that I'm very proud of and that I take a lot of pride in is that my guys that work for me have never been laid off.
Wow.
They've never had to, yes. And in this industry, everyone will tell you that's very hard. There are definitely a lot of, peaks and valleys. And, so I take a lot of time and make sure that we try to strategize our jobs when we look at them and when we take them on, to plan ahead and make sure that we have, a lot of good inside work going into the winter time and things like that. I think, people ask all the time, like, how is it being a female in a very male-driven, dominant field? But I think
is it fair to say that like that?
It is definitely. I think that for me personally, I think that one of the things that have helped us and helped me be successful are 2 things. Having great people around me and who have been very supportive and been very committed to the business as much as I have. And then being organized and being honest. I think that those are probably the 3, biggest key things to where we have been successful and where we're at today.
And especially in the markets that you said, Liberty, Brookville, Richmond, and I know other areas, but those are close-knit communities. Word travels fast.
Yes,
One of the honesties, integrity, you better have it.
Exactly.
They can shut you down. But okay, so, getting your dad, so was it because he kind of, and dad's cool now, right?
Yes. He had a kidney transplant and he's doing great.
Awesome. Okay.
Yes.
So, all right. So, is that what kind of like, was that the opportunity where he was kind of off work and you're like, Dad, come over here and work with me? Or did you have to like, because I've got the same similar issue, conversation with family. I want them to kind of support and work with me. So how did you get there?
So, yes, that's pretty much exactly what happened.
Okay.
He was off for a while and had the transplant and was looking at other opportunities himself instead of going back into the factory and doing the machinist work. And so, he had kind of talked about several different things, and I really had a need for another person and someone that, is fulfilling the role that he's in. And so it was, a lot of conversation. And I'll be honest, bringing on family and friends
it's a double-edged sword, right?
Difficult situation.
Yeah.
My parents and I and my dad and I are very, very close. But there is an interesting dynamic there when I'm suddenly his boss. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's always been my mentor and, telling me what to do and what choices to make and stuff. And so there was definitely like some initial, just working through, communication and expectations and, and just learning, I'm very particular about my job sites and I'm very particular about products that we use and colors that we use and certain brands of toilets and things like that. So just everybody getting on the same page and figuring out what that was and what that looked like. And, but I think, the biggest thing that I would say is communication, and just being very direct and straightforward about, what the expectations are. And I use the same approach in my job sites, when I meet with customers and talk to customers and, we're talking about a design, whether it's something, a very small job, like putting a new door on, or we're talking about a whole kitchen remodel.
Or a building.
Or,
remodeling
a
hotel. Yeah.
So yes, it's very important to talk about expectations and timelines and money and all those things and just again going back to just being honest with people and upfront, about, I can do this for this or I can't, as opposed to one, thing that we never do is I'm never going to tell you I can do your bathroom for X amount of dollars. And then we get to the end and I say, it's actually,
So
5,000, more or whatever. So I like to, be very transparent and honest with customers. And I think that has definitely worked for us. And, we've been successful and had a lot of repeat business and a lot of referrals from our customers. The other thing that I think that we did and do well is branding.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Your branding is consistent, and I see what you're doing. I take notes, so that's cool. So talk about that. So why?
So when I first started out and I decided I was going to do this, my husband has been a huge supporter. Couldn't do it without him. But one of the things he talked about was making sure that I loved my logo and if I was going to do it, that I came out strong with the brand. And so I literally have pretty much put it on everything, And then as we've, opened and started new businesses, we've kept the logo consistent, even with the store and with the dumpsters and so on and so forth, so that when people see it, they recognize it and tie it all together. And I think that that's worked really well for us. And I definitely think that's something that we've, did well. And, I think it's important to advertise in lots of different facets. We've done radio, we've done billboards, we've done, social media, we've did emails, we've did postcards, we've did yard signs,
and now podcast.
And now a podcast. So we've did lots of different, facets and platforms of advertising. I think that is also important, not to just get, pigeonholed into one marketing venue or platform, and reach lots of different people.
That's great. And so you think about, I watched you, grow. I mean,
right.
You've always done amazing, it seems like, but now I see you've done, I see you do maybe one or two big projects here, but it's now like, you've got like a commercial side now, I believe, right? So how did you get to that point where was there any fear? Do you have somebody that coaches you or mentor that's helping you give you the confidence that, hey, I can take this big project on? What is that like?
So I do have a great mentor, Dan Stamper, who owns Thor Construction, has been a huge mentor, friend, great for advice and guidance. And really, he initially, definitely took me under his wing and has, tried to show me the ways and how he does it and he's been obviously very successful for many, many years at it. And so that's really how we started out, getting into more of the commercial side. And, it just, again, kind of just flourished from there, and those, opened other doors and other opportunities. So yeah, it's been a crazy ride.
Yeah, crazy ride, and it's ups and downs.
Yes.
So talk about a down. Like what kind of challenge? Is there a significant challenge that you went through? I mean, we all have in business, and what maybe what was it, and what skills did it take for you to get through that part in your business, in your life?
So I think definitely the ups and downs of construction is definitely one of the bigger challenges. And the flow of finances and money, as you grow and as you get more people on your payroll and more, tools and equipment and vehicles and overhead expenses, it's important to keep that in balance, to make sure. And that's something also that we really try to make sure that we do, is that we don't have a big fancy building per se. We've rehabbed and remodeled existing buildings. Yes.
That works.
And we really try to keep our overhead costs, down as much as we can, so that we can, continue to grow and be more successful. I also think it is important. I worked with a physician for years at McCullough Hyde who, still, even to this day, as healthcare has changed and physicians have been absorbed by hospitals, he's remained independent and running his own practice. And so I would always ask him about business and about his practice and making it successful. And two of the things that he always talked to me about were treating his employees like they were his own family. And that's something that definitely stuck with me. And I think anybody who works for me or has worked for me would tell you that I am very good to them. And I really try to give back to them and treat them with respect and bring them into projects to have an opinion and a voice. And then to invest back into your business. You know, I think that a lot of times as business owners, when we take too much from our business and not reinvest it, that we can set ourselves up for failure. And so, again, I've tried to definitely do that, and by growing in different, facets that make sense for us, and, trying to make it all collaborate and come together.
When you think about your business and reinvesting, I mean, can you share like a percentage, like what goes back? Because people don't realize, like, I feel like, I don't know, they want to put numbers to it, but Grant Cardone, I don't listen to everything he says.
Right.
But there's one thing he said that stuck out to me, and it was basically, out of 100%, you need to be putting back 40% for taxes, 40% goes into marketing, and the other 20% you live on. So if you got $100,000 and you got $20,000 to live on, then you need to be getting some more. You need to be doing more to increase that. What is your business model? Like, where are you at? Where it's like, okay, I need to get a new truck for this. What's the return I need to have on this to make sense? Can you talk about some of those numbers?
So I definitely think it's important to, sit down at the beginning of the year, especially after you've been in business a year or 2 years, to sit down at the beginning of the year or going into the new year and look at those numbers and say, ideally, this is what my overhead expenses run. This is what my payroll has run. This is what we brought in. So what can I realistically, and I don't like to use like specific 40%, 20%, because I don't think that works for everybody.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the volume and the dollars you're bringing in and what size business you're talking about, and then what really makes sense. Are you living on this income alone? And if that's the case, can you really survive on 20% of that?
Right.
Probably not.
Right.
But can I make it make sense at 30%, and 35%? Yes, that's what makes more sense for us. Or, whatever that looks like for you. But I definitely think it's important to sit down and really look at those numbers and analyze those numbers. And that probably for me was one of the hardest things to do, just because I was just looking at it right now. Like, this is what I have. This is what we're spending. This is what I need to have for next month. And so that definitely is somewhere where I've grown within the business, is figuring out what that looks like and how, what those numbers are that make sense. We give to lots of different organizations and non-for-profits. And so in the past, pretty much everybody that came to us, we're like, here. And so then at the end of the year, really looking at and evaluating, okay, these are the things that we're passionate about, and these are the things that impact us and our kids or my families that work for me. And so we want to redirect our dollars and focus on these 5 instead of 40 or whatever. And doing the same thing with, looking at what we're putting out for real estate for the business or vehicles. Okay, so we bought 2, trucks last year. We probably will go through this year and not need to purchase a vehicle, but we need a new dump trailer or something like that. And kind of sitting down at the beginning of the year and looking at that and thinking strategically, like, these are the things we're going to need to grow and build this business, and this is what it's going to cost. And then this is what's left over. So how do I want to look at, making sure that we can continue to be successful by, allocating for taxes, marketing and, overhead, and then living on taking a salary.
Jill, you said something earlier, giving. So, I mean, your heart wants you to give to everyone.
Yes.
But then, I mean, so I'm like, you want to help everybody. You get pulled in. I mean, it's hard to say no. It's hard for me to say no.
Yes.
But how do you go about giving? Do you have a particular organization now you're passionate about? How do you go about that?
Yeah, so definitely, like I said, in the past, we kind of did a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And that's hard to do. And
Mm-hmm.
so we really, at the beginning, going into the new year, looked at and evaluated like, these are things that are really like, have our same vision,
Yeah.
that we're passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously things that are, have to do with kids or women or girls,
Mm-hmm.
but not, specific. I mean, we do lots of different things, but really looking at what those are and
Mm-hmm.
evaluating how to portion out the dollars that we have allotted to give back.
Mm-hmm.
And there's definitely things that come up, circumstances that are, a one-time thing that we obviously, still give to and participate in. But we do lots of different things. I mean, we, donate personal items out to Crossroads. We do stuff, for Girls Inc., CYL in Richmond, or Centerville. We do the Richmond Optimist Club,
Uh-huh.
so lots of different things, but it just kind of, honing it in on what is actually, kind of is in line, like I said, with our vision and is important to us as a family and
Yeah.
in the business.
I can tell you're passionate about the youth. Sounds like you're
Yes.
supportive.
Right.
And then you said something about young ladies.
Mhm.
So, thinking about your path and the things you've overcome and things you still have to overcome, I'm sure. And what would you say to that little girl out there that's watching this or sees you on social media or sees your signs and aspires to be like you? What would you say to that young lady?
You can do it.
Uh-huh.
And to take the leap, I know that there's been, a lot of conversation lately about fear and about how that really holds so many of us back from taking the next step, whether it's starting the business from scratch or transferring within a job that you're already doing and things like that. And I think that it's super important that, as parents, we want to protect our children, so we may say to Johnny, he comes to us and says, I want to be a fireman or I want to be a doctor, or, whatever that is. And we as parents may say, well, I really don't want you to do this or that because, or you think they can't do it. But I think as parents and as adults and mentors for children, it's important to teach them they can do and be anything that they want to do. There have been so many people along the way that have said, you're never going to be successful at this. This isn't your wheelhouse. Or, what are you really doing? Is this just a hobby? And I just have never let it affect me. I've just stayed in my own lane, doing what I was going to do and just basically proving them wrong along the way, and that's just how I think you have to be about it. I think a lot of people get sidetracked in worrying about what this contractor over here is doing or what this realtor over there is doing.
Yeah.
And I think that when you really just focus on what you do and with yourself and instead of, breaking people down, building them up and celebrating their success, that you will find more success yourself.
Man, and even with me, like people make comparisons or they'll say, I'm not in competition with anybody.
Right.
I set goals every year. I reevaluate those goals throughout the year. The only person I'm in competition with every day is me.
Right.
I want to be better than I was yesterday.
Yes.
And who can I impact and maybe help them change their life?
Mm-hmm.
That's how I look at it. So, Jill, it's been a pleasure having you here. But thinking about your path and where you are now, and the people that have been there supportive along the way, is there anyone or any group or anyone in particular you want to give a shout out to today?
I mean, definitely my family, my kids and my husband. I mean, definitely have been supportive. It's not an easy road to own your own business and take calls 24/7 and, go in after hours or weekends to, make things happen or put deals together, meet with clients, things like that. So definitely, couldn't do it without their support and understanding of it. And, like I mentioned earlier, Dan Stamper has been an awesome mentor to me, but there really has been, my employees, the people that work for me, and I have a personal assistant, Angela, who, pretty much does anything and everything I ask her to do. And so just surrounding yourself with good, positive people and people that have your same, vision and want to see you be successful is very important. And I feel very blessed to have, lots of those people in my corner.
Wow. And I've been very blessed to have you here today. And I can't thank you enough for being here, Jill. I look forward to continue seeing you grow and keep exploding out there. And I'm glad to call you my friend. So that wraps up another show of Diamond Podcast. Have a great weekend. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Great job.